Have you ever had one of those moments? A coincidence so bizarre, so perfectly timed that it just feels like something more than chance. Like a little message that was meant just for you. Well, let's get into it because there's a whole theory behind that exact feeling.
Right? It's that little shiver down your spine, that feeling that for just a second, all the random chaos of the world lined up perfectly. It's a moment that's kind of hard to explain, but it happens way more often than you'd think.
Okay, think about this. You're just living your life, maybe making coffee, and out of the absolute blue, an old friend pops into your head. Sarah. Wow, haven't thought about her in years. Wonder what she's up to. And then, bam, your phone buzzes, and it's her. What in the world are the odds of that? It's weird, right?
Well, according to one of the fathers of modern psychology, Carl Jung, that's not just a coincidence at all. He actually gave it a name, synchronicity. And the story of how he stumbled upon this idea is honestly just as strange as the idea itself.
This takes us to the origin story, and you really have to hear this because the moment this theory was born was, well, a synchronicity in itself. So picture this. It's the 1920s, and Jung is treating this woman who is a real tough nut to crack. She's brilliant, super logical, and her mind is like this fortress of rationality. She refuses to accept anything that can't be explained by logic and reason. And because of this, her therapy is going nowhere. Jung is at a total dead end.
Then one day, she comes in for her session and tells Jung about a powerful dream she had. In the dream, someone gave her a piece of jewelry, a golden scarab beetle. Now that's a really potent symbol from ancient Egypt, an icon of rebirth.
And this is where it gets absolutely wild. While she's telling him about the dream scarab, Jung hears this little tapping sound on the window behind him. He gets up, opens the window, and an insect flies into the room. He catches it in his hand, and it's a rose chafer beetle, a bug with this shimmering metallic green-gold shell, the closest thing you could possibly find to a living golden scarab in that part of Europe.
He walked back over to his patient, held out his hand, and just said, "Here is your scarab."
I mean, can you imagine her face? That logical fortress she had built around herself just crumbled in an instant. There was no rational, step-by-step explanation for how an object from her inner world, her dream, could physically manifest at that exact moment. And that shock, that crack in her armor, was the breakthrough that finally allowed her healing to begin.
So this event really forced Jung to think beyond the normal rules of science. He realized he needed a totally new way to describe what just happened.
You see, we live our lives by the law of causality. You flip a switch, the light turns on. Cause, effect. It's predictable. But with the scarab, the dream didn't cause the beetle to fly to the window. The two events were physically separate. What connected them wasn't a cause. It was meaning, profound, undeniable meaning, for her in that room at that time.
So Jung came up with this idea he called the acausal connecting principle. It's a big phrase, but the idea is pretty simple. He was proposing that there's another fundamental force in the universe, working right alongside cause and effect. And the glue that holds this other principle together isn't physics, it's meaning.
Okay, but how could that possibly work? If it's not cause and effect, what is it? Well, this is where Jung's theory goes really deep. He suggested there's a whole hidden layer to reality that we're all plugged into.
He called it the collective unconscious, this deep, shared psychic ocean connecting all of us. And he believed that when you have a really intense internal state, like his patient's desperate need for a breakthrough, it activates a powerful universal idea in that ocean, an archetype, like rebirth. And that energy becomes like a magnet, actually organizing the physical world around you to reflect what's going on inside. Her need for rebirth literally pulled that beetle out of the sky and into the room.
Now, I know this might be sounding pretty mystical, but here's the kicker. Jung wasn't just cooking this up on his own. He had a very unlikely partner in crime from a completely different world.
His collaborator was Wolfgang Pauli, and this wasn't just some fringe scientist. Pauli was a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, one of the pioneers of quantum mechanics. The fact that a mind like his took this so seriously is, frankly, astounding.
So together, they came up with this concept called unus mundus, which is just Latin for one world. Their theory was that our mind and the physical world, psychology and physics, aren't actually separate. They're just two different sides of the same coin, two different views of one single unified reality. And when a synchronicity happens, it's like the universe briefly pulls back the curtain and lets us see that deep, underlying connection. But of course, we've got to be honest here. There's a much simpler, more down-to-earth explanation for all of this. So let's put on our skeptic hats for a second.
So there's this thing called Littlewood's Law of Miracles. It points out that the average person is awake and alert for about 8 hours a day. And during that time, you experience about one event per second. A thought, a sound, seeing something. That adds up to about 30,000 events a day.
Well, when you run the numbers on that many events, it turns out you should statistically expect a 1 in a million miracle to happen to you roughly once every single month.
So the argument is pretty straightforward. It's just a numbers game, and our brains are wired for pattern recognition. We get hit with confirmation bias. You remember that one amazing time you thought of Sarah and she texted because it feels special. But you instantly forget the 5,000 other times you thought about somebody and nothing happened. We see the hits and ignore all the misses.
But here's where Jung's idea becomes really useful, regardless of where you stand. Because whether it's cosmic intelligence or just random math, he argued that the origin story isn't the most important part. What matters is what you do with it.
And he had some very clear advice. First, don't go looking for these things. If you do, you'll start seeing patterns in everything and drive yourself nuts. Second, he said a real synchronicity should feel startling. It should kind of knock you back on your heels. And most important of all, when one of these moments happens, don't waste your energy asking, how did that happen? The much more powerful question is, why did this happen to me right now? It becomes a prompt for self-reflection. So in the end, maybe you can think of them like traffic signals. Sometimes it's a green light, a little nudge from the universe that you're on the right track. And other times it's a blaring red light, a jolt that forces you to stop and finally pay attention to something you've been avoiding. So the next time the universe gives you a little wink, what is it trying to get you to see?